get real, child. Let's get real.
Hi, glad you're tuning in today. Hope you'll share this website and share it so we can get a bigger audience. I'm a get real guy, and I can't stand irrational thought. And one of the things we do on this show is have interesting people on who are really making a difference in the world and offer something great. Now, don't think that I only have people on that I agree with everything they say and they have to adopt all of my kind of wild beliefs that we need to have a libertarian Christian world. But I'm happy to have somebody on who disagrees with me and wants to argue and I think that'd be some great TV. So if that's who you are or you know somebody, send them to getrealtv.com and let's talk about getting together. We can do Zoom podcasts. So today I have a great guest who I agree with a lot on a lot of issues, Benjamin Thomas, who's an author and has written these wild books that talk about a whole different way of society functioning and saying that God is going to do an intervention to give us just a better, more holy world going forward. But we're going to talk about a lot of issues today. We just watched the debate last night, and that was a wild show, and we're going to talk about that some, give you our ideas about it, and take care and stay tuned for 30 minutes of dynamic conversation with thoughts you probably haven't heard of or thought of. Good to have you, Benjamin.
David, it's great to be here.
We're just making a difference, and we're filming this the day after the debate.
Yeah.
And a very dramatic debate, very sharp contrast between the two candidates, and really was kind of a 3-on-1 attack on
totally.
Trump. I mean,
Totally.
man, so biased and no follow-ups with Kamala. She started out ignoring the big question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Well, that was a big tell. I mean, if you're running for president and you've been there for 3.5 years and someone asks a really simple question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And to dodge that question tells you the answer, and the answer is no. And I think, you look at credit card debt is through the roof right now. You look at the inflation's through the roof, and anyone going to the grocery store and trying to buy groceries and put food on the table knows things aren't better than they were 4 years ago.
No. Well, and this compounding federal debt, where we're looking at a $2 trillion deficit this fiscal year, where, that's catastrophic. That's totally unsustainable.
Well, I mean,
you're talking about taking $2 trillion out of the economy, out of the productive side of the economy, and using it to fund government expense, which is mostly unproductive.
Well, fund government expense and most importantly, fund wars that we shouldn't even be involved with. I mean, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars in weaponry. We wasted, $80 billion to $100 billion in Afghanistan in the withdrawal, and we sent hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, which is a war we shouldn't even be really involved with.
Shouldn't have happened,
and it shouldn't even happen in the first place. But I think Elon Musk said the other day that the United States is teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, and I happen to believe we're already there. I think the fiscal, the fiscal responsibility in Washington is not there. Nobody seems to care. They surround themselves with economists that just say, "Oh, we can have as much debt as we need. It's not a big deal." But as you and I've seen over the years in business, there comes a day when it just doesn't work anymore.
Totally.
And I think we're getting there.
Well, it's just like this credit card debt. People have taken out more debt to pay bills because they don't have enough income to support their lifestyle. Instead of cutting back their lifestyle or scrimping, the credit card debt has exploded up. And of course, the interest rates on credit card debt have gone up too. So people are paying hundreds of billions of dollars in interest on all this credit card debt. And that's all money that's being siphoned out of people's pocket and going to the masters of debt.
Well, the masters of debt have been in charge for a long time, Dave, and that whole debt system goes back to ancient Babylon. It really was never God's plan for people to be buried in piles of debt.
Well, in fact, in the Old Testament, there's calls to have debt forgiveness every number of years. I think the big Jubilee is every 50 years.
Every 50 years, that's right. I mean, that God's law was that people would be out of debt, but if they got in trouble, there was basically a life raft, and every 50 years that debt would be forgiven. And in fact, there was also a 7-year life raft for people. And in fact, if someone made a mistake or lost their property in a gambling situation or got sold into slavery, it would come back to them after 50 years. It was an economy based on love, not, siphoning and debt. And I think what we have now is a situation. I know a guy, he's got, 2/3 of his house paid off, and he's running some hard times, and they're trying to take his house away, and he's got 2/3 of it paid off. And because he, is in tough times right now because of the Biden-Harris economy, the bank is just like licking their chops to take his home from him with his family.
Yeah, they've already gotten paid more than the house costs because with interest,
exactly.
If you've been paying on a house for 10 or 15 years, you've paid about twice what the house is worth.
He's already paid off twice what the house is worth. He's got kids in the house. He's got his mother in the house, and yet these banks are trying to take it away. Well, that whole system is very demonic at its very root. It's a very demonic, ancient system. It's called Babylon, and I think that's what my books are about, is that God wants to get us away from that.
Yeah. Well, and your books are disruptive, and I encourage people to go to revelationriddle.com and learn more about you. Hear an alternative viewpoint. None of us really know what the future holds, but Benjamin's had visions and had a lot of success in life and has now become kind of a zealot, promoting people to turn back to God and really get holy. And I agree with that. I'm not sure we know the timeline, and Benjamin and I have some disagreements about what the future may hold, but I think we all know that we're on an unsustainable path. Most people have given up and aren't doing anything to fight the evil that's at work in our world. My favorite quote is Edmund Burke saying, "All that's needed for evil to prevail is for good men to do nothing." So if you want to do something, go to the GetRealTV.com page, to the support page, and give us a little donation. It's not tax deductible. It's just a pat on the back of me saying, "David, love what you're doing. Here's $10. Here's $20. It's PayPal, so it's super easy. You can take it out of your PayPal account or do it with a credit card. It's secure. So GetRealTV.com, go into the support page, and we need money. We're getting ready to do a big email campaign to promote GetRealTV.com, and even more important, Hannity.com, so that people can see the real Kamala Harris. We're in this debate that we had yesterday. Like Benjamin said, she avoided all the issues and tried to pretend that she's this moderate, feel-good person for all people, when in reality, she's a radical Marxist who wants to fundamentally remake America. And she's embraced the most radical governor as her vice presidential candidate, who's in favor of taking children away from their parents and cutting off their genitals and mutilating them. I mean, just horrible treatment. To take a mentally ill child who doesn't love their body as they are and say, if we chop your breasts off and chop off your sexual organs, you're going to be, quote, happy. That just deprives you of one of the great joys in life, which is sexual pleasure. And to do that to kids sets the stage for suicide. The suicide rate for people who've had this surgery is very high. We saw in Tennessee with this young gal who'd been mutilated, going and shooting up a school and writing a manifesto that was so bad that the government suppressed it and wouldn't share it with the public. I think some of it has been shared, but it's been kind of suppressed by the mainstream media. Even Fox News hadn't talked about what's in the document. So this issue, we need to get real, folks. The real truth is there's boys and girls. There's no in between. You can sterilize a man. You can cut off you can castrate him, but he's a castrated steer then. He doesn't have the testosterone to be aggressive. He'll get kind of fat, and he won't be able to perform sexually or have sexual joy. But he's not a girl, and he shouldn't play girls' sports because he's still got the testosterone that he had before they cut his balls off or chemically castrate him with medicine. But we've got to get real, folks. So I love Riley Gaines. I was lucky enough to meet her at a small event here in Dallas. Encourage you to support her. Hoping to have her on a podcast in the future. Take care. There's a lot of good news. You can also look up trans man Scott Nugent, who's written a book about his path going from being a lesbian to having the gender reassignment surgery that just ruined his life. And he's written she kind of goes by she, but she goes by he, looks like a man because she's had all the hormones and everything. Just a tragic story, but needs support. So check out Scott Nugent online. I'm lucky enough to be blessed to meet a lot of really interesting people, including Benjamin, in a very unlikely way. I think if God brings somebody into my life in an unlikely way, it's just meant to be. And that happens to me a lot. And Benjamin's been very inspirational. We've talked. I've helped try to promote his books. And if you've been watching my show, you saw him a few episodes back and wanted to have him back on and we could talk about how government is doing and this debt crisis and how we have to get real. So let's talk some more about the politics. It's just a crazy damn world.
Look, I mean, what we're seeing here is a spiritual battle. This is not Republicans versus Democrats. This is good versus evil. And I ran into a friend of mine in the lobby at the hotel last night, and he was just saying, "Look, you have a choice now for the first time in American history between a known radical Marxist and a president that really does love this country and want to see it succeed." And we never thought we'd be there, did we,
No.
David? I mean, we never thought we would be at this
think of
place.
Marxism as a failed philosophy.
Absolutely.
That was going away, when in truth, it's getting stronger and stronger.
It's been slowly lurking in the shadows for decades in the United States, and now it has emerged as the front runner for the Democrats as a known radical Marxist whose father was a Marxist professor at the university level. And so who thought we'd ever be here as this country? And, when we talk about things like transgender operations and all that kind of stuff, this is just another lie. That's how Satan gets in. He feeds someone a lie and says, you're going to be happier if you change the way God made you. And then once they get on the other side and it's irreversible, they realize they now struggle with depression. They're hooked on all these medications. And most people don't realize this. Most of the shooters at these school shootings were transgender. They were just, they'd gotten to a place where they had bought into the lie. that Satan told them. And then, of course, they get to a place where they're so angry at everybody, they'd actually be willing to pick up a gun and fire at kids at schools.
Well, and it's a way to commit suicide without pulling the trigger yourself. Death by cop.
That's right. And that is absolutely God. We need to care about things that God cares about, and He cares about these children. And these children that have been manipulated and lied to about sexual orientation from a very young age, they're victims. It's child abuse. It really is child abuse, David. And I really think that so many people that call themselves Christians aren't passionate about this enough. And maybe their kids have already grown up and they're out of school now, or maybe they feel like this is a battle that's been lost. But if you talk to a mom whose child is on that volleyball team and those boys are walking into her locker room, she's not happy. I don't care whether they're Republican or Democrat. They're not happy about that. They're not happy about the way their daughter feels when she sees that man walking in. And so this should be an issue on that thing alone. People shouldn't be voting for Kamala Harris. Exactly. I mean, she is absolutely all the way on the other side on that issue. And if you think it's bad now, wait, if she gets into office, what it's going to look like. It's going to be even more radical.
Well, the only antidote may be if the Republicans hold the House and take the Senate, where there's a divided government. And many Americans like a divided government. And it's possible that just like in 20, where my cousin was in Congress and won his district by 11%, guess what Trump's margin was? 1%. And so 20% of the people that voted for a Republican in Congress voted for Joe Biden or didn't vote. And that may be what happens today in this election, is that people say, we don't want Donald Trump, but we don't want Kamala Harris to run amok, so we're going to vote Republican and take control of the real power of government, which is the House and the Senate, which sets the rules and can strongly limit what Kamala does. But that's a dangerous path. I'm a Christian libertarian, Libertarian Christian Institute, libertarianchristian.com. I vote for the least bad. I'm very concerned about Kamala. We're sending out an email blast. If you're watching this because you got an email from me talking about let's get real about issues, I'm thrilled that you're online with us. Hope you'll continue to watch. We're going to have more great programming, more great guests. If you're a potential guest that has a strong attitude, reach out to us and we can have you on. I love to debate with people with alternative views than me, but Benjamin and I align on a lot. We both believe that God's in charge and that the devil is subject to God's wishes. And, his contention is that God's going to really overthrow the devil soon and return us to a much more holy way of living that gets away from this debt slavery. But his timeline is further out than the election. So we need you to go to Hannity.com and check out Kamala in her own words that she said over and over again for many years. She said on the air in the debate, my values haven't changed. So what she said 5 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago is still her beliefs today. She's saying, I'm pragmatic. I'm not for banning fracking. But in truth, she is for radically shifting us away from vital fossil fuels. If you're concerned about climate change, watch my climate documentary. We've got a link on GetRealTV.com to get my book. Buy my book. It'll blow you away with the positive messaging that we can make the world carbon negative while we still use oil and gas. Friends, the problem is not emissions. Emissions don't matter. What matters is the health of the environment, because photosynthesis is hungry for carbon dioxide. You know what the level of carbon dioxide in an Iowa cornfield is on a still summer day? 0. the corn is literally starving for carbon dioxide because it is such a incredibly aggressively growing plant. So we need to increase photosynthesis by adding minerals to the soil. So go to my program, help me join this. We've got to fight to save America as we know it. This electric car push is an absolute disaster because electric cars only last 10 years. And guess how old the average American car is? 10 years old. Most people, the bottom 50%, can't buy a new car, can't even buy a cheap new car. They have to buy a used car that's lost a lot of its value so they can afford it. So they can go to a note lot and pay $200 or $300 a month for a car. But anyway, we need to talk more about what's going on in politics and what Benjamin's working on. And so the title of your new book is?
The title of the new book is Glory of Eden. And, when you talk about politics, I want to make a very, very prescient, but I think often overlooked statement. We do not trust in government. We trust in God. And so we can always look to the next election. We can always look to this candidate or that candidate to save us. But at the end of the day, we trust in God. And, I think a lot of people are fearful right now. Their grocery bills are through the roof. They're just trying to make ends meet. And I would encourage everybody, right now is the time to get right with your Creator. Get right with the Most High. Get right with Yahweh. Because if you get in that place of quiet and you get in that place of meditation on Him, peace will come into your heart. You'll get ideas and insights and wisdom about how to deal with life that you just don't know where it came from. It comes from the Holy Spirit. But my book, Glory of Eden, is about, for the first time, I've written 3. This is my 3rd book in a trilogy.
Yeah.
This is the book that lays out the full story from the Bible about what God plans for humanity. And, he talked about a lease. I know you've been in real estate. I've been in real estate. When you lease we're in probably a facility that they're leasing from somebody, the building owner.
Yeah.
And so this book talks about how Satan was given a lease to rule the age for 6,000 years. So after the fall in the garden, we gave it to him. So the world and the authority and the dominion was ours in the garden. But then, because of the transgression of Adam and Eve in the garden, we handed our authority, our dominion over to the devil. But that wasn't going to be permanent, David. There was a redemptive plan that God spoke of even back then in the garden, which was that one day it would come back. But that was going to be 6,000 years later. And so what we're coming up on is the end of the 6,000 years. And, I've talked to a lot of real estate people. You don't renew the lease unless you have a good tenant. And Satan's not been a good tenant. Look at all the misery that people under. He's a thug. And God is not going to extend his lease on this earth 1 minute past the time frame that he set forth. And he said 6 days, 6,000 years, and we're coming up in 2027 at the end of that 6,000 years. And so what I'm excited about is the fact that I see now light at the end of the tunnel. I see the wheels falling off the deep state. They're making mistakes. People know who they are now. People are more aware now because of great programming like yours and your books. And there just seems to be more awareness now at the mass level of the true evil nature of our secular governments, of these godless institutions that have just reigned tyranny for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, on our lives. The good news, David, is that that lease is almost up, and God is about to intervene in a major way and take us back to the Garden of Eden. And that's what my new book's about.
Well, it's a bold vision, and as a skeptical, get real guy, I don't know what the future is. I'm not as certain as Benjamin is, but I wanted to have him on because we became friends in an unlikely way, and I think we're called to make a difference. He likes my program to end world hunger by shifting away from grain towards grasses that are utilized in a different way. And you can go to fullofideas.com and see more about me. The site is very underdeveloped because I'm full of ideas and short of cash. So if you're an accredited investor who's interested in seeing an incredible change in the world, reach out to us and share the good news that we can make a real difference in the world and make those visionary investors who join with me a tremendous windfall. But anyway, I hope you'll get Benjamin's book and check him out. He loves to speak to people. He's accessible and kind of a fanatic for God. So anyway, it's been great to have him on and to talk about things. I hope you'll go to Hannity.com and check out The Real Kamala Harris. I'm a libertarian Christian, but I'm very, very concerned about the rise of Marxism in the world, which is just a destroying thing. Marxism is where you pit two groups against each other, where there's the haves and the have-nots. And, you know, Kamala Harris is talking about attacking the haves in a vicious way with this tax on unrealized capital gains. I mean, this is insane. You've got some stock, you've got a company that you started from scratch, so you've got a zero basis in the stock, and the company has grown like Tesla to be a huge company. Well, all of a sudden, the government wants 20% of your money. That means you have to sell 20% of your stock. Well, what happens if Elon Musk sells 20% of Tesla? Who's going to buy it? What's going to happen is the price is going to implode.
Right.
Now, they haven't talked about the details of this rule when they set the value on your holdings.
Well, they really want to take it to 75%. That's the real plan.
They want to take all of the rich people's money.
That's right. That's the real plan. And if you look at,
and they're going to move the scale down from the $100 million level down and down as they rip off the economy.
That's right.
So if you're worth 10 million or 5 million, they may come after you. If you have a trust for your kids, the government hates trust, hates people passing down wealth. They're going to come after those trusts.
Right.
It's going to be horrible, friends. So get real about things. Pay attention to all this programming. Watch all my podcasts. Watch my climate documentary. And whatever you do, don't think that Kamala Harris is going to be a good person to move America in a positive direction. She's going to move us in a very negative direction. This Green New Deal BS that they talk about is a takeover of the economy, making government, instead of being 20% of the economy, it'll be 80% of the economy. We'll all be slaves to the government. We know how bureaucrats are. They're not much fun to be around. Imagine them controlling everything about your life. When you want to go to a doctor, you have to see a board. You know, if you go to Canada, you don't get an operation right away. You may wait. They may just let you die. So think hard about it. Do research and be informed. Don't vote uninformed. Find out the positions. And Trump may not make that much of a difference because the deep state is so dominant, and elected officials only get to change about 0.01% of the government when they take over. So all these bureaucrats that have been in office since Obama and since Bush and even before are all radical Democrats, and they're unfireable. They think they've got a safe perch. So we need to change, friends, and we all need to get together with Get Real and making a difference. Take care. Go to Benjamin Thomas's book and go to GetRealTV.com and give us a donation so we can share the word more and get more viewers. Thank you.